Good evening, good evening, good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and yes, folks, it's been a very long day. It's gonna be a very long next 2 months. I did watch the depth trial today. I think instead of trying to stream it, we'll talk about it on open chats on Mondays, and I know I'm gonna have to fiddle with my timing on that so I'm not running into anybody's streams like last night. I'll figure something out, but I'll do videos as I can. I'm still embroiled in the JRC too, so please, guys, be patient with me. With working a full time job, this is just. Alright, we are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, and before we get going, the usual disclaimers. You are going to see the article that we are going over now right there in the description box, alongside the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, and the templates. Folks, you know the drill. Sign your name, click on your senator. Any ever-present and self-explanatory change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. Folks, when we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities being tortured and abused. You have young children present. Please use your headphones. I also want to prep you folks, a trigger warning, as we get closer to May. We're going to start reading some of the things from the JRC side because I want to prepare you guys to know what it is you're getting ready to see. Because, yeah, you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared. So once we finish that article, we're going to go ahead and jump in on their side. God help me, there's not a cup of tea strong enough. And folks, yes, I am exhausted, and that whatever the hell that was word salad from Elaine has my brain in complete utter chaos of slush. So if I stumble over any of my words, stare off into space, go off on left field, make a left turn, and then go even further left and make another left turn, apologies in advance, alright? So let's go where we left off this morning. And this will probably be short. My brain's running on fumes. As shall be demonstrated, this attempt to change the face of autism is largely achieved, or at least attempted, through the power dynamics that are played out within the built environment of the JRC. Philo, 1989, further reinforces the observations by stating the treatment of those incarcerated in asylums is largely dependent on the architectural arrangements of the building. This control of the environment, in turn, is a way that the bodies of the inmates can be made docile. God, it makes me sick. As Folcott argues. Carlson 2010 points out that the institution performed multiple functions: pedagogical, medical, therapeutic, custodial, and professional. It became an organizing principle, an array of definitions, theories, categories, and proposed treatments. This important observation has been an important guiding principle in my research, and is one that I have returned to from time to time through the process of writing this paper. In what follows, I hope the reader understands that I am attempting to explore one small aspect of the JRC environment. Moreover, that any attempt to understand even an aspect of the varied and contested functions of an institutional space is by its nature always incomplete, and as knowledge is always partial and situated. Haraway, 1988. The theme park. Cross and Walton 2005 note that the opening of the first Disney theme park in 1955 heralded a new age of the amusement park. Disney abhorred what he saw as the dirt and danger of places like Coney Island and traveling carnivals. The Gentleman 1992, Cross and Walton 2005. Disney's preoccupation with efficiency, predictability, order, and control made his parks different from their predecessors. Wonder if he was autistic. County fairs, carnivals, and places like Coney Island or Luna Park. Fijelman, 1992, Cross and Walton, 2005. As others noted, Disney theme parks were concerned chiefly with creating a narrative environment within which to immerse visitors, rides, and other attractions that were introduced to expand the narrative. The Gentleman, 1992, Gottendiener, 2001, Lucas, 2016. The amusement parks, which were dominant prior to the introduction of Disneyland, offered the visitor an experience that was not nearly as concerned with order and presented visitors, predominantly young people, with an assortment of high thrill rides and attractions with an element of risk largely absent from the Disney parks. The Gentleman, 1992, Cross and Walton, 2005. Disney's vision for his theme parks was that they were to be a family experience with controlled and sanitized fun. His concept rejected what he termed the tawdry rides and hostile employees that characterized Coney Island and similar places. Cross and Walton, 2005. He also objected to the population that Coney Island and its ilk catered to, young people looking for excitement and managed risk. Instead, Disney wanted to create a park designed for middle-class families to enjoy together that offered managed fun and upheld wholesome, clean family values. Cross and Walton, 2005. So while it is undeniable that the Disney parks emerged from the carnivals, amusement parks, and freak shows that characterized the post-Second World War period, the newly designed theme park was also a reaction against some of the values that characterized such places: danger, risk, the exotic strangeness, the uncanny, embracing instead what Disney came to call good, clean fun. The Gentleman, 1992, Cross and Walton, 2005. The controlled, sanitized elements that came to characterize the theme park, of which Disney parks are an early example, and the way this meticulous control over the space of the park, also methods by which the guest behavior is managed and contained, have implications for the space of the JRC, and in offering an interesting parallel from which we can explore the ways space can be a tool used to manage, contain, and control the behavior of those within it. As we have already seen in the brief history of the North American institution, space is of the utmost importance in the treatment of disability both historically and currently. Rachel Gonerman, in a 2007 interview with Israel, then the director of JRC, writes that when questioned about his vision for JRC, Israel stated that when designing the space of the JRC, he conceptualized that the changing people's behaviors would help them live better, more normal lives. Again, with this concept of normal, there's this idea of what normal is that nobody ever actually reaches. One day I'm going to have to do a paper on this and go more into scope about this unobtainable normal. And why is normal the goalpost that we set for disabled people? For everybody else, we set the bar high. Stand out. Reach higher. But with disabled people, they almost romanticize this concept of quote unquote normal lives. The fact of the matter is, normal lives aren't so normal. Anybody with neurotypical siblings can tell you that. Nobody is normal, really, especially in this day and age. So, one day it's too interesting for me to leave alone and not pick at it. It's probably something I'm going to continue to bring up as we go through this article. There's this idea, this concept in the medical model about normal, and how somehow normal is better. But the fact of the matter is, normal doesn't exist. At least, not how these people want it to be. In any frame or instance that I know of in the modern world, this idea of normal doesn't really exist anywhere except inside these people's heads. It's this fantasy almost of you can live like everybody else. I don't want to live like everybody else. I'm not like everybody else. Nor do I see that as a goal to obtain, nor have I ever in my entire life. I never wanted to be like these people, these normal people that I should aspire to be like, who bully, condescend down to, and control and ridicule and gaslight and treat with cruelty the people around them. The pettiness, the backbiting, the backstabbing, the gossiping. Because remember, I was a very quiet, observant child, little girl. I would sit back and watch. And I didn't want to be that way. But these people have somehow romanticized this idea of we gotta make these people normal like everybody else, without actually observing and seeing how everybody else lives their lives and how they act, and how the quote unquote normals affect the world around them. I'm gonna dig into that one day. God, maybe I'll get an early retirement. Here's to hoping. God. I mean, my stocks are doing well in Wayfair. We'll see. According to Gonerman, 2007, Israel made particular mention of the importance of controlling the whole environment in order to change behavior. This is what I find disturbing, folks. This changing behavior thing on the surface seems harmless, but it's not. It's the forcing of the round peg into a square hole, where we literally have to bend and shave and break away parts of ourselves in order to fit in the holes that you all have made for us. It's fucking miserable. I'm glad that by the time I got out of high school, I left with both middle fingers up in the air and say, I'm gonna do me. Fuck you all and you're normal. It's a freeing thing. Everybody should do it. Yes, even neurotypicals. You should also hold your middle finger up and say fuck normal. It's a wonderful thing. You'll thank me for it later, I promise. The notion was needed that with a school like this, we have an awful lot. Not the whole environment, but an awful lot. From her time at the school, Gonerman, 2007, observed that Israel exerted an extreme level of control over the environment of the JRC, controlling nearly every aspect of the facility. This preoccupation with order and environmental control echoes Disney's vision of the park, free from disorder and risk. And here's what I find interesting. Order and control over our lives is something that us autistics struggle with. What I mean is, we like order, we like routine, we like efficiency. So when we look at people like Israel, the ones who are declaring that we are wrong and we must be fixed and we must become normal, but you look at them and you look at what preoccupies them and what they obsess over, is the physician trying to fix himself. I do wonder. Just food for thought. Related to this preoccupation with order, the Disney parks share an approach to entertainment and guest experience that is distinct from that of the traditional amusement parks or carnivals that are characterized by a seemingly random assortment of rides, coasters, and attractions. Through Disney's reliance on use of themes, the Disney parks rely on theming to organize the space and the visitor experience. In Disney parks, this is achieved in part through the division of different areas of the park into lands, Wild West, Epcot, etc. These themes are communicated to guests through architecture, music, costume characters, themed rides, food, merchandise, and all that adhere to the particular area's theme. Distractions from the theme are minimized and discouraged. Disney was often recorded as being distressed by the spotting staff out of costume or observing costume characters from one land entering into a different one in order to offer guests an immersive atmosphere. Ryman, 1995. In this way, the Disney parks and similar themed spaces such as restaurants, shopping malls, and museums are examples of spaces that are both themed and immersive in nature. Lucas 2016 has written extensively about themed and immersive spaces. He argues that we can understand most spaces by having a theme. A kitchen might be themed around food and family, and as being immersive. Spaces we enter involve our entire sensory system: touch, taste, smell, sight, hearing, and proprioception. Yet, according to Lucas, certain spaces have essential features that distinguish them as themed and immersive spaces in the sense that I am arguing characterizes both theme parks and the JRC. Here's the thing about themes, though, when we're using it in this sort of context. You always gotta take your audience into consideration. If you're going to a Disney theme park, your kid likes Disney. When we're talking about an institution on the level of the JRC, the kids aren't going there because they want to. You see where I'm going with this, right? And therefore, you are forcing them into this kabuki like craziness with all these myriad different themes that can be triggering, sensory wise, extremely painful, that can cause like hundreds of sensory issues. If I walked in there, it'd be my entrance gate to hell. I'm not even exaggerating. This is where I do believe it differs. You enter into a theme park willingly. You have an idea and an anticipation of what to expect. Those students going into places like the JRC are walking into something that is not built with them in mind, with themes, sounds, sights, smells, sensory, that might actually be painful for their neurology to be able to handle. And it is done intentionally this way to force them to deal with it and react to it like a normal child would. You see what I'm going with that, right? These distinguishing features include a function of the space and the added value of the theme or narrative told throughout beyond the functioning of the space. Lucas 2016. So while we might be able to understand all human spaces as inherently themed and immersive, the type of space I'm discussing in this paper is unique that it bombards those exposed to it for unique, evocative, and extraordinary symbols. Lucas 2016. All right, we're going to go ahead and end on that, but I really want to get this point through your head. When parents come to the JRC, they're not us. By and large, they're neurotypical. By and large. Some of them actually are probably autistic. These things are genetic, after all. If they're not autistic, they have some other neurodiverse type of diagnosis because it runs in families. The main difference between the theme park and a place built around the concept of the theme park, like the JRC that Dr. Israel created, that people don't seem to understand, is, from his own words, it is made to control them, to force them to be normal. It is not made, in spite of what Israel tries to tell you before he tells on himself, to make going to school fun. No. It is created to force them into a mold that neurologically we're never going to fit into, not at least without years of trauma and burnout. The kids that go into the JRC are not the same as the kids that go into the Disney park or into Silver Dollar City or Six Flags. We know what to anticipate. We know what we're going into. Silver Dollar City, with its lights, its sounds, its whirling, is a comfort to me because I've been going there since I was 5 years old, and these sights and sounds are a comfort to me. There's a large amount of nostalgia there. There's certain things that I, as an autistic, can handle that many of my fellows cannot. I know what to expect when I go there. I know what I expect to see at Disney World. I know what to expect when I'm going to Six Flags or any other theme park like it. This place is not a place kids go to willingly. You see the distinct difference there? That distinct difference that nobody seems to talk about? These kids aren't going there because they want to and they thought it was going to be fun. They're being put in there many times against their will, not even by their own parents, but by courts, of court appointed guardians that rip these kids out of their family homes and put them in this hellhole. And the themes are not built based around what might be the interests or even to assist with some of the medical issues which come from our many diagnoses. Because remember, they also treat kids with ADHD as well as autism, as mental illness, Angelman syndrome, and Down syndrome, and paint them with the same brush and throw them into this kabuki hell. A kabuki hell that is designed to manipulate, to assist and control, and force down their throat a narrative that we are never going to be able to live out. All in the name of this straw man, this concept in their heads, this romanticized idea of the normal. Now, on that note, folks, I'm going to close out. We don't get very many views on this channel, especially on this subject, and the few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening, and as always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, folks.